This man's hot, your flesh start to boiling hot. Rhyme solid like a lead pipe that bleeds and not. Knot-headed niggas get knocked out a lot.
Hello, 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 hello. Welcome back to another college football video. Week one is, well, it's well under wraps, I'll admit. I wanted to have this video out a couple days earlier. Kansas has already beat Illinois at the time I'm recording this. Shout out to them. That will not be taken into account into these rankings, but watch out for Kansas in the post week two rankings. But what this is, my top 25 list. I didn't do my preseason one. I didn't get time to do that. But this is based when you see the teams who rose and fall, that's based off my own personal rankings. So uh yeah, we'll get into it. Let me go ahead and start from top to bottom, not gonna lie, because you know, I think I think people want to see the top first, and the hardcore college football enjoyers are going to stay to the end. So I think that's the best way to do it. Okay. The first two have not changed from my preseason rankings. It's still the exact same. Georgia 1, Michigan 2. I'll try and keep it extremely short here on these top two teams. Georgia, my pick to three-peat win national championship again. Carson Beck looked very fine. Very fine. Didn't struggle whatsoever. Brock Bowers looked just as dominant as ever. And they actually have options now as far as different types of, receiver threats, whether it's Ra Thomas, Dominic Lovett, Lad McConkey, they have options now. It's scary. They didn't turn the ball over. They were able to they had a lot of injuries at running back. They were still able to run the ball effectively. And they beat UT Martin, for those of you who care. Michigan, very clean game. Played Division One East Carolina. JJ McCarthy had a JJ McCarthy game. Nothing impressive, nothing that's going to shock you, but he came in, ran the offense efficiently, effectively, didn't put the ball in the other team's hands, and Michigan steamrolled East Carolina. Roman Wilson, by the way, with 3 touchdowns, possible breakout wide receiver one season for him. Keep an eye on Roman Wilson. Now let's get into it. This is where things changed. This is where there was kind of a shakeup. I had Florida State at number 8. I had Florida State at number 8. Let me actually double check there. I believe me and I don't know what the regular 8 people had them at, but yeah, I had them at 8. So they jump up 5 spots all the way to number 3. Why is that? Well, because they had the most impressive week 1 win. They beat the best team out of anybody in the country week 1. And they didn't just beat them, they dominated LSU 45-24. Now, first half tells a completely different story. First half, that game was close. You may even say LSU should have had a lead. I might even agree with you there. However, Florida State came out second half and was clicking on all cylinders. I mean, Keon Coleman out the transfer portal from Michigan State, I think the best week 1 performance from a wide receiver. Not to discredit Johnny Wilson. I mean, you look at Emeka Egbuka and Marvin Harrison Jr. doing nothing combined, and then you look at Keon Coleman and Johnny Wilson, and you say, damn, I wonder who the actual best wide receiver duo is. And then the defense, I think Florida State is the most well-balanced team offensively and defensively in the country. And the defense, so many big stands against LSU, 4 sacks, 2 takeaways. Florida State's at number 3 for me. Washington at 4. I had them at 4 before the season started. They're 1-0 now. Beat Boise State. People thought this was going to be a close game. It kind of was a close game for the first couple possessions. Washington's offense, there wasn't a single turnover by the Washington offense. It was either a touchdown or it was a punt. Very simple. And they punted on those first couple times, but they got it clicking, as everyone thought they would. Michael Penix, dominant, just dominant. 450 yards, 5 touchdowns, only 78 rushing yards. They lost Wayne Talapapa to the NFL. Well, he's not on yet, but he's gone. And they lost Cam Davis to a serious season-ending injury before the season even started. So now you're stuck with Dylan Johnson, some other guys. It's just They have to figure that out on the fly, unfortunately. But for now, the pass game will suffice because they had three receivers over 100 total yards and a touchdown, and the defense got two takeaways against Boise State. So I thought Washington looked very strong. I have no problem putting them at number 4. So yeah, my belief in them is only strengthened after week 1. Number 5, I have UFC, USC. They did play 2 games. I think the offense looked as dominant as everybody thought it would have. Caleb Williams has been damn near flawless. They've been able to run the ball incredibly well. 6.9 yards per carry is scary. San Jose State and Nevada. Okay. I mean, Taj Washington has like 6 catches for 3 touchdowns. I mean, he's been one of the best deep threats in all college football so far. The defense, though, they gave up 300 plus passing yards to Nevada, and I think over 200 rushing yards to San Jose State. So it's like they've been very shaky in both games. And the big thing for me is they've only got one takeaway. This USC defense was a team who was in the top of the country last season in takeaways, and they're going to play Oregon. They're going to play Washington. They're going to play Colorado. I mean, they're not going to be able to stop those offenses. You got to be able to force turnovers in order if you want to win those games. So USC, my opinion on them has not changed after their first 2 games, but certainly improvement needs to be seen defensively. Penn State beat West Virginia soundly, 38-15. Drew Aller, he didn't just look good, he looked scarily good. He looked like probably the best quarterback in the Big Ten by a wide margin. No disrespect to JJ McCarthy, but he's not Drew Aller. I mean, he's just not. If Drew Aller plays like that all season, assuming that's his ceiling, he's the best quarterback in the Big Ten by a mile. Katron Allen, Nick Singleton both did their thing. They ran the ball effectively. Keandre Lambert-Smith, 126 yards, 2 touchdowns. You'll take that any day of the week. Defense, not perfect, but more than good enough. 3 sacks, more than good enough to beat West Virginia. Penn State, man, Big Ten East, probably the best division in football, at least at the top of the division. Alabama at number 7. Even though their ranking did not change for me, even though they were at 7 before the season and they're still at 7, what a completely different outlook I have on their quarterback situation now. I was a guy who I always said it was going to be Milroe from day 1, not even really a competition in my eye. I just thought it was going to be Milroe the whole way. And he balled out. 5 touchdowns, 242 yards. He was making plays with his arm, with his legs. And they dominated Middle Tennessee. And before you disrespect Middle Tennessee, they beat Miami soundly last season. So let's give them that first. But yeah, Alabama did whatever they wanted. Ran the ball, threw the ball. Only 2 penalties, which I thought was very telling of the command Milroe had over the offense. And defensively, kept their hands to themselves, playing smart, dominating Middle Tennessee. 2 takeaways from the defense, 3 sacks. I mean, they just look good. It was a tune-up game, obviously, but you looked about as good as you can look in that tune-up game. So Alabama, a lot of confidence going into their game against Texas. Ohio State dropping, I think, the most of any team that won a game. I had them at 3 before the season started, and man, Kyle McCord sucked. Devin Brown didn't look impressive. They beat Indiana 23-3, but their offense was bad. It was very, very bad. They weren't even able to run the ball all that well. 143 yards, sure, but when you really break it down, they should be dominant. And look, I give all the credit in the world for playing a conference opponent on the road week 1. That's not a Middle Tennessee. That's not a UT Martin. Okay, that Ohio State decided to go out and play. Respect to that. But you better beat it because 23 points offensively, they didn't look good. They didn't look good at all. Marvin Emeka Egbuka, only 5 catches for 34 yards. And keep in mind, the thing we've been saying all offseason is that, yeah, they're not going to have a great quarterback, but at least he's going to have the best weapons in the country. Well, if he can't make use of those weapons, then it doesn't matter if you have. I mean, you could have fucking Justin Jefferson and Devontae Adams out there, but if the quarterback can't get them the ball, it doesn't matter. So yeah, Ohio State has a lot of things to fix offensively. Defensively, though, they were amazing. I mean, Indiana sucks. They were rolling out two different quarterbacks, neither of which were good, and Ohio State just absolutely snuffed them out the entire game. But offensively, Ohio State, my opinion of them changed drastically after week one. Moving on, I have Oregon at number 9. Did not change my opinion of Oregon. I don't want to talk about what they did to Portland State. You can kind of, moment of silence, first of all, for Portland State. And you can read what Oregon, the stats were. I don't want to say it out loud. But yeah, yeah. Moving on. Tennessee at 10. They moved up one spot for me. They beat Virginia soundly. They beat Virginia soundly. And the scary thing for me is they were not playing as well as they could have. Absolutely not playing. Ramel Keaton dropped a 70-yard bomb from Joe Milton early in the game. Would have been a massive touchdown, passing touchdown. He straight up dropped it. Perfect dime, whatever you want to call it, throw from Joe Milton right through Ramel Keaton's hands. Joe Milton looked very good. He did not look, obviously, he didn't just come in and dominate week one, but he did more than enough. And really, Tennessee running the football. People forget this was a top 25 rush offense in the country last season. They ran the ball better than some teams whose only focus is to run the ball. Okay, so Tennessee's rushing attack is very potent, very deadly. They showed it week one. Only 2 penalties as well. I mean, Tennessee looked dangerous, point blank. Defensively, too, getting after Virginia with 5 sacks, only 204 yards allowed. Tennessee is scary, and they looked at week one. Number 11, Utah. Obviously, just handling Florida. And they were down 9 I think at the start of the game, they were down 8 starters. But I think they lost a middle linebacker in the first half, and he didn't return. So in the second half, they were down 9 starters. 9 starters against Florida. And I know Graham Mertz started to, get it going in the second half, but I mean, it was pretty soft coverage. I mean, when it came down to it, third down, fourth down, Utah was not moving. They were not folding an inch against Florida. That defense looks stout, if I do say so myself. No Cam Rising, obviously. The offense struggled. I mean, they had the 70-yard bomb to Money Parks on their first play of the game, but after that, it was pretty choppy after that, right? But defense carried them this game, missing 9 starters, and you beat an SEC team by double digits. Yeah, that's a pretty good damn game. I had them moving up one spot, number 11 for me. Number 12, I got Notre Dame. I had Notre Dame 14 to start the year, and all the questions I had have been answered. I mean, I wanted to know who the guys were going to be in the receiver room that weren't there last season, weren't stepping up last season, who were going to be taken advantage of. Well, it's Jaden Thomas, it's Jaden Greathouse, it's Deion Colzie, and a heavy dose of Audric Estime, Chris Tyree. That offense is a lot of playmakers that is now, being made, useful due to the addition of Sam Hartman. They beat up Navy and Tennessee State. Combined score 98. Should it be 98-6 or 98-3? Let me check that actually. I feel like they gave up 3 points both games. Let me just make sure though. By the way, AP poll has Notre Dame at number 10. So I'm kinda, I'm a little lower on Notre Dame than the rest of the country. Yeah, it should be 98-6 combined score, 3 points to Navy and Tennessee State, but I mean, come on. 98-6, really? They've looked great. They've looked great. No sacks allowed on Sam Hartman yet this season. Defense hasn't given up a touchdown. I mean, they look like a team that's going to, dominate Ohio State in week 4, point blank. Depending on how they look this week at NC State, I will pick them over Ohio State. And I don't think it'll be relatively close unless Ohio State changes something. So Notre Dame, great start to the season. LSU, I have at number 13. Now, this is very interesting because AP poll had LSU at 5 to start the year off. I had them at 10. I was much lower on LSU for a lot of the reasons you saw on Sunday night, I believe it was. Secondary was questionable at best. Now, when you're playing Keon Coleman and Johnny Wilson, every secondary in the country is going to look questionable. It was a mistake. It was, yeah, you're going to lose some of the one-on-one matchups, but I mean, they were wide open on a couple plays. And, you know, offensively, I didn't really trust LSU's ability to throw the ball. And, Jaden Daniels, he had a lot of yards, 410 yards, but they couldn't really run the football outside of Jaden Daniels, which was very concerning. Logan Diggs didn't play this game. I'm not sure why. Could be 1,000 reasons why. I'm not sure. But he didn't play. They struggled to run the football. Massive turnovers offensively. And then, I mean, the defense is just no sacks. A defense with Harold Perkins got no sacks, almost 500 yards allowed. Now, I was lower on LSU than most of the people, so I I expected them to lose. I picked Florida State. I expected LSU to lose, but to lose in the way they did, it's just doesn't really sit right with me. So I had them dropping 3 spots. Number 14, I got Kansas State. I have Kansas State at 14 because they won the Big 12 last season. I saw, I mean, 45-0 over Southeast Missouri State now. The revered Southeast Missouri State. But Will Howard looked very good. They were able to run the football. And this is a team where there's not a lot of question marks. You know what they're going to do. You know how they want to play. DJ Giddens and was it Trayshawn Ward? Very good running back duo. And defensively, I mean, they did what they had to do. 4 sacks, only 6 rushing yards allowed. Again, Southeast Missouri State, but still, Kansas State looked solid. They looked ready. They looked like this was a tune-up game that they really didn't even need, and they're ready to go and play the top teams in the Big 12. And I think they're going to beat a couple of them. So very good performance from Kansas State. I got them at 14. 15, I got Texas. Texas did not look flawless. When I'm comparing, the way I do these rankings is if you are above another team, it means I think you would beat that team on a neutral site right now. And some people may look and say, oh my God, Kansas State over Texas, what are you smoking? Texas looked shaky week 1. Kansas State was damn near flawless. Neutral site, I'm taking Kansas State all day. So Texas, they beat Rice 37-10. Quinn Ewers, they were not able to air it out, really. I think Quinn Ewers was like, I'm trying to pull this stat from my memory. I think it was like 0 for 5 on throws over 20 yards. I believe that was the stat. So they weren't able to get what they wanted downfield. Running game obviously is going to struggle. I mean, you lose your top 2 running backs, one of them being just a generational talent in Bijan. So they struggled to run the football, but they didn't turn the football over. Offensively, you did more than enough to win the game. But defensively, they got a takeaway, didn't get a sack. I mean, not an amazing performance if you're let me just make sure. Yeah, not an amazing performance if you're Texas against Rice of all teams. But I did have him moving up 1 spot to 15. UNC at 16, they didn't just beat. This is a very slept on win, I feel like, even though it was on national TV, a lot of people saw it. When you think of week 1, you probably think, Florida State, you probably think Colorado, you probably think Duke, but UNC manhandled South Carolina. And what everybody's going to talk about Drake May, okay, whatever. That defense, guys, UNC had a strong case, maybe with Colorado, as the worst defense, certainly in the Power 5, the worst defense in the country, possibly. And what they did, 9 sacks, 16 TFLs. Now, I think those overlap, but guys, this is an SEC program. Okay, not a bad one. Not Vanderbilt, not Missouri, with all due respect, not a bad SEC program. And they gave up -2 rushing yards. That's incredible. I mean, that's what happens when you lose Marshawn Lloyd and Jaheim Bell to the transfer portal, but still, North Carolina looked amazing. And Drake, this is the thing. This is the really impressive thing. They won a game against an SEC opponent. A lot of people thinking what should have been a ranked team. They won a game against what should have been a ranked team by double digits, and Drake May didn't play that well. That is a godsend for North Carolina for them to be able to do that this season. Nobody would have thought that, last season. So I had them jumping up 6 spots all the way to number 16. Number 17, I got Oregon State. DJU, I mean, I already talked about the Clemson downfall, but DJ Uiagalelei looked great. He looked absolutely amazing. 249 yards, 5 touchdowns. They beat up on San Jose State. They were able to run the ball very well. I mean, 197 yards at 5.6 a pop. What I don't like is that they were penalized a lot. 9 penalties for 85 yards. Some of these Pac-12 games are going to come down to just a razor-thin margin of error. And if you're penalized that much, that's going to be the difference. Absolutely going to be the difference. Defensively, they were very good. Very good defensively. 3 sacks on a takeaway. I think most people consider Oregon State to be the best defense in the Pac-12 along with Utah. So, Oregon State, I didn't change their ranking because I kind of saw what I thought I would, but DJ, very impressive week 1 performance. Ole Miss number 18. Um, I was high on Ole Miss before the season, but man, did they beat the brakes off poor Mercer. And Jackson Dart, I mean, he was named the starter like 2 days before the game, but he balled the hell out. 360 yards and 4 touchdowns. They didn't even need Quinshon. I mean, you shouldn't need Quinshon Judkins against Mercer, but he still had his 2 touchdowns, 71 total yards. 667 yards of total offense is incredible. Defense, 3 takeaways, 4 sacks. They look good. They play Tulane this week. I'll get to it when I talk about Tulane, but Ole Miss, they jumped up 5 spots because they looked dominant. Absolutely dominant in week 1. This whole graphic right here is kind of just teams that, I mean, just took massive jumps for me. Texas A&M, I had them unranked. They beat the brakes off New Mexico. We knew what Texas A&M's defense was, right? It was the best pass defense in the country last season. But offensively, they sucked. They stunk. They were horrible. But Bobby Petrino comes in, new OC, and they look good. Very good. Already, higher points total, I think, than any game last season. Connor Wegman carrying on the momentum he had from last season, and they look very good. I mean, ran the ball not great, but they lost Devon Achane to the NFL, so I don't expect them to be a great running team. 9 penalties, definitely want to clean that up if you're Texas A&M, especially going. I don't know if they're playing at Miami or at College Station, but definitely want to clean that up for week 2. But Texas A&M, they look very good. They're all the way up to number 19 for me. Oklahoma at 20. Another team I had unranked just because of how bad they were last season. And I think they lost. I mean, they lost their number 1 receiver and they lost their number 1 running back, Eric Gray, both to the NFL. So I'm like, man, I don't know if you can just replace it like that. And they won 73-0. I mean, Ole Miss 73-7, Oklahoma 73. They made the other team's head coach cry on the sideline during the game. That was hard to watch. But yeah, I don't even want to talk about what they did to Arkansas State. 30 for 33. This was Dylan Gabriel and Jackson Arnold. It was easy. This was easier than a scrimmage because in scrimmage you got to play yourselves. This was varsity versus JV. This was all of that. So it's hard to even really gather much from this game except Oklahoma just, poor Arkansas State, send them to D3, put them up, against Jackson State or something. But this was bad. But Oklahoma, if you beat a team like that, you're in my top 20, point blank. Number 21, we got Mississippi State. Had them ranked already, but, Will Rogers, the kind of underlooked star quarterback here, he didn't look that great, but they didn't need him to because they ran the ball damn near 300 yards, 7.6 yards per carry, 3 touchdowns. This is a very experienced team. A lot of seniors, a lot of fifth-year seniors on this team, specifically in both lines of scrimmage. It's just an experienced team. And you see that with only 1 penalty. Only 1 penalty. Now, Southeast Louisiana, okay. But offensively and defensively, I think Mississippi State showed up. And, this could be a very, very dangerous team in the SEC West. I had them at 21. 22 Duke. This was very hard to figure out where to rank Duke because, yeah, let me put it like this. They played poor enough to lose that game to a lot of teams, and they blew out Clemson. That just makes me think Clemson sucks. All respect to Duke. They're at number 22, but Duke did not play their best game whatsoever. Okay? Riley Leonard looked good. Okay? They were able to run the ball. I mean, Clemson's defense is still good. They were set up in a lot of bad situations that game, but nearly 200 yards, 6.6 yards per carry, 3 touchdowns. Duke ran the ball on Clemson, and they ran it fairly easily. Okay? 2 sacks, 3 takeaways. I mean, Duke's defense was making stand after stand after stand. And, they were penalized heavily. They were by far the more. I think Clemson only had 1 penalty. So Duke gave Clemson a lot of shots, and they blew every single one of them. So shout out to Duke, but also Clemson, you fucking suck. Duke at number 22 for me. Colorado at 23. This is very hard. This was very hard because similar to Duke, I think they beat an overrated opponent, overrated by me as well. I had TCU in my top 20, certainly. But yeah, Colorado just exposed the flaws in that defense, and they made the right plays. I mean, I already went over this game. You already know what happened in this game. I'm not gonna recap. You can see it right there. Records being broken across the field everywhere. But I have Colorado at number 23. I do think Duke on a neutral field would be able to just pound it down their throats. They have a good quarterback, so Colorado on the rise, certainly. Should start the season off 3-0, probably climb into the top 20 at that point by the time they travel to Eugene to play Oregon. But yeah, Colorado to go from 1-11 to ranked just like that. Shout out to Deion. Final 2 here, Tulane and Wisconsin. Tulane, now, first of all, Michael Pratt looked absolutely incredible. I mean, I think he was 14 for 15, 4 touchdowns. Tulane, they didn't run the ball as well as they did last season, certainly at only a 1-game sample size. I just thought the game was too close. I know South Alabama is not a horrible school whatsoever. There was like 10 turnovers this game. We had 5 takeaways, but the defense was like 15 fumbles this game, 5 sacks from Tulane's defense. But I don't know. They were sloppy. They weren't great. I mean, Michael Pratt was great, but not able to run the ball incredibly well. It's just I think the teams above them would beat them. Simple as that. The teams I have ranked above Tulane, I have them all favored. I would have them all favored against Tulane. And then Wisconsin number 25. This was very hard. I could have put a dozen teams here at 25. I thought Clemson for a while, but I fell into the trap of thinking about a Clemson team that doesn't exist. I thought about a Clemson team who could score more than 7 points per game. So I had to give myself a reality check there. And Wisconsin, they did not do what I thought they would. I thought they would come out week 1 and show us the new era of passing offense of Wisconsin. And no, they couldn't. I mean, Tanner Mordecai, I don't know how bad those picks were. I don't know if those were on him or the receivers or whatever, but he didn't play very good just based off the raw numbers. But you don't have to play good when you got 2 running backs over 140 yards individually. So yeah, I guess Wisconsin can still run the fucking football. Who would have thought? Defensively, no sacks, no takeaways. What the hell is going on? I mean, it's Buffalo. Come on now. But yeah, Wisconsin with a good win, a big win. And yeah, that's going to round out my top 25. It's 4:30 a.m. right now for me, so I still got to edit this video and do all of that. But I'm going to do it because I'm not going to let this week beat me and not get a video out. So thank you all for watching. Leave your thoughts, comments below, and I'll see you next time. Peace.
It's out the motherfucking pack. Right out. But niggas don't know how to act.